I'll just hold it out. A lot of times the way we like to shoot is just have people speaking the issues themselves, so it's not mediated by question and answer.
Oh, like,
so,
okay.
You know, we'll talk to a lot of people and then try and weave a thread, you know, a thread that the
right.
It's kind of like pseudo documentary. We just find whether people are speaking about issues that concern them in their own voice.
You need a windscreen.
Yeah. Not good at all.
Yeah. It's really fuzzy too.
Hello? You have a light on there? Do they have lights on there?
Yeah. Oh, this has meters.
Meters, that I'm saying. Do they have lights for the indoor? Do they have lights for the indoor?
I'm not sure what you mean.
And lights for the like lights, like floodlights, like.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we need Phreak.
Yeah, I think it's just a headphone. It's not
I
a
get
problem.
a headphone. I mean, I have a.
That's the line feed. It actually doesn't lay off because I use this laser line. It's getting the same buzz.
What is it? Getting the same buzz in the studio? Does it go on the tape?
No,
Oh.
I think it's just a monitor.
So long as it doesn't go on the tape.
Maybe we try and work around it.
Feel like picking up?
Oh, yeah. You can try it. See.
How old were you when you got into this?
Well, I'm 28 now, and I got into it when I was like 13.
13? So it's about 15 years ago. You just met up with the manual about 4 years ago?
Yep.
So what kind of community did you have before then?
Before that, I was just on my own, just playing with phones. Just when I went to college, I just like played with the Centrex or the PBX or things like that. I knew nothing about T1s. I knew nothing about the internet. I knew nothing about anything about switches until a roommate referred me to Off the Hook, which he listens to WBAI in New York City, and he just said, "I think you'd like this show." I listened to it, and after I met Emmanuel at a 2600 meeting, and I just was very surprised that there were people out there like me that were interested in the same thing I was interested in. Before this, people always used to think that I was like weird because I like telephones and do the things that I do, like play with computers and phones, and the interests weren't normal, like my family used to say. But after going to 2600 meetings and seeing the people that go there are other people interested in it, and to this day, some people say that you're going to get arrested for what you do, and no, it's not something that I do that's illegal. It's something that you're interested in, something that people are going to get angry at by you looking at how things work, like going into a computer system or dialing certain numbers. Like, for example, you dial a carrier access code like 10288, it's supposed to get you AT&T. 10698 is supposed to get you the local NYNEX operator. Apparently it gets you AT&T in this area. And I try to tell the phone company this. They want to know who I am, how I know about this, and why why it's such a big concern of mine. And I'm just trying to explain to them, something's wrong. You should fix it. And sometimes it takes them a while to fix it. And another thing, AT&T puts third number calls through on regular phones. If you're at a payphone, they'll call for acceptance when you want to charge a long distance call to another number. AT&T will put their number calls through on a regular phone without asking. They'll just put it right through. I mean, you could be at home, but you could be at one of these payphones, like these desktop payphones, like that you see in like doctors' offices and restaurants and things like that.
Code or
It's a Coldcut. It's a Coldcut's like a regular payphone, but these are like desktop Coldcuts, desktop payphones I call them, and they're regular phone lines. They're not. Some of them are like identified as Coldcut lines. Some of them blocked as zero. It depends. You would get, if you were able to get to an operator, you'll be able to either bill calls to the phone that's there, which is the phone's line, or charge it to another number.
how you doing?
How you doing?
Sarcastically, Len. No, I don't do that.
Shall I talk about why
I
people?
couldn't. I couldn't. I couldn't shotgun news today.
Shall I talk about why people do certain things?
Yeah, that,
Gotcha.
yeah. I think also distinguishing between the kind of things you do, which is getting into the switches and
Right.
understanding
Right.
how the phone system works,
Right.
as opposed to the cell phone hacking, which is a
Right.
whole different issue.
In terms of switches, I had an article in 2600 about how you can tell what kind of switch you're on. You can listen by the way the switch clicks. It has a certain cadence to it. Now, I mean, a lot of people would say, "Who cares?" But it's sometimes helpful. You want to know what switch you're on, or you know, want to know what central office is hooked up to your switch. Because if you want ISDN, you're going to want to know if you're on a digital switch. And before you ask the phone company whether they can hook ISDN to your line, you're going to listen and say, "Oh, I have a digital switch. It clicks a certain way, or it doesn't click, or I have an electronic switch that clicks." And you can just tell the way certain, like when I was first starting in this, when I was about 11 years old, I used to imitate the switches, the clicks that the switches go. When you're connecting to an operator, I'd know the way the phone, the old crossbar switch would click, and you could tell a lot of different things just by listening to the way your telephone operates.
When do you get the click? When you first pick up the phone, or do you have to dial
Well,
access code?
no, it has nothing to do with access codes. It's when you pick up the phone. If you don't hear any click before the dial tone, that's a digital switch. That's the DMS 100. If you hear a click before the dial tone, that means it's like a 5ESS or a 1ESS. A 1ESS is an analog switch. And on a 1ESS, the analog switch, when you dial a number, it gives you two clicks, like a ka-chunk click, before it connects to the number. A DMS 100 and a 5ESS digital switch does not do that.
And knowing this, is there anything you can do with that? I mean, is it?
Not that you can do anything, but phones used to trip down to dial tones, like the way Coldcuts were used to be. You could make free phone calls on Coldcuts by, picking up the phone, dialing a free number, like an 800 number or an operator or something that you didn't have to deposit coins for. You wait, you say to the operator, never mind, I'm sorry, wrong number or whatever, and then you wait for them to hang up. You don't hang up, but after they hang up, after like a couple of seconds, the phone would go back to a dial tone. That doesn't work very much anymore. But that's the way you used to be able to make free phone calls on Coldcuts. You used to enter you just used to, dial off the dial tone. A lot of Coldcuts mute the mouthpiece. A lot of Coldcuts will cancel out the keypad or whatever. But it doesn't. It works sometimes. It works. Doesn't work other times. That's one thing I learned from Off the Hook, from Emmanuel. And also by experimenting, getting together with people. I wanted to buy a computer. I bought a computer, a personal computer. Instead of going to the stores and asking them, what kind of sound card should I get, or what these different specs mean. They don't really know all that. I go to the 2600 meeting. They know more than than some of the people that work in the store. So it's like a technical support, really. And they know more than the phone company too. Because when you call representatives as to why your phone is blocked for certain things, or why certain things happen, I find that hackers and phone phreaks can tell you more than the people working inside the companies.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, whenever you call the phone company and tell them something, they they get very interested in who you are. And
Right. Certain people. I mean, there's a person in the toll fraud department that that likes what I do. That's very interested in what I do, and there are other people that just see me as like a pest or a pain or go away or why are you calling or they say get a job or I mean it's when I tell them something, when I tell them that, hey, there's a phone in your payment center, there's a courtesy phone that lets you make free phone calls by dialing a carrier access code, before the number. They don't understand what that means. I mean, sometimes I do, but sometimes you have to explain it like 5 times, or you have to explain it like for a half hour before they understand what you're talking about. And then even so, they refer to the wrong people, or the people that they refer to don't know what's going on, and it's hard to get to the people who the right people to tell that something's wrong. I mean, if something's wrong with the 10698 thing connecting you with AT&T instead of 9X, it's happening all over. It's not happening in one central office. So who do you tell? I guess I tell the people at the central control center, and they don't know what's going on. They don't know why it's happening, or they fix it, but they fix it the wrong way. It connected to the wrong thing. It didn't connect it with AT&T when they try to fix it. It connected with something else, and then they just put it back the way it was. And so they seem not to understand. And it's like I try to get a job with the phone company, and the test was sort of a little quick and demanding. You have to do numbers right and things like that. But I think a perfect job for me would be consulting for like the phone company or any technical. I mean, these new companies are emerging, and these they need people like me, like people that go to 2600 meetings, to tell them how a certain thing should work, what it should do and what it shouldn't do. I mean, I didn't really finish college, but still, I think I learned more going to 2600 meetings than I'll ever learn in college.
Well, and I mean, most of that stuff isn't even taught in colleges because
Right. I mean, they don't teach the. I mean, they teach the detailed logic of Erlang's and things like that. That's a little beyond me. I mean, I don't know that much about things like that. I mean, there are people at the meetings who do know, but the way I learn is just by asking questions. When I read a book, some things are confusing, so I just ask, what does this mean? And it's explained. I find that people that hackers and phone phreaks explain things in simple terms, and that's the way that's the way I learn what I learn. By experimenting and finding out why when I do certain things, why does this happen? And that's the way like the cellular phone hacking. I don't know how to. Okay, let's yeah.
malicious.
Right, that's the other thing.
A lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, don't understand. Like I have knowledge of certain things. They think I'm up to something, or they think of somebody is up to something, and they get suspicious. I'm only trying to learn just because I'm interested. And I. Not that I want to break into something or steal something. At school I asked to see the central office of the switch where I was. This is upstate, and the guy saw I was interested. He wasn't really supposed to let somebody into the central office, but he showed me, and he showed me certain things, and he showed me how things work, and same thing here. I went up to see a number 5 ESS, and I just asked questions. How are you billed? How does billing work? And things like that. When I went down to Texas and found the Cocotte company, the people who make the Cocottes. They told me how that works. Some people are willing to show you how things work and explain things, and we need more people like that, and people who aren't reluctant to explain to somebody something and just push you away just as if you were just like somebody who's just a pain to them, or don't bother me, we're busy, we don't want to explain this to you. It's really not your concern. That's what some of the people in the phone company say. You don't work for 9X, you shouldn't be concerned with this.
Do you think it's a case of that?
Which
Yeah.
we didn't ask, so that I can remember what you were going to ask. Well, I don't know if the security relies on people not knowing how the technology works. I don't know if I would agree with that. Uh, I think it would be beneficial to them to have people. I mean, they do have people that listen to the radio show off the hook and that go to 20 that buy 2600, and people like me who write for them and explain to them how things work. I mean that's a step in the right direction. They hire people who actually do that. Go to hacker conferences and things like that, just to find out what I guess we're up to. But you know, I don't know if it's because I know a person in toll fraud that likes what I do, and she she finds it very interesting what I do, and I sort of help her because I tell her things that are wrong and how they should fix them, or things like that. Sometimes they don't know how to go about fixing a problem, and I say, hey, you should do this to fix this. Some people are very ignorant that work for the phone company. They just want to get a paycheck. They don't care about the security. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious. At one time, the phone company was part of the national.
Oh yeah, the Bell system.
Yeah, it
Right.
was part of the national security infrastructure, and they.
What, the national security?
Well, it was part of the national security. Basically having the phone lines on or connected, having control of them, keeping switching stations secret for locations.
Uh, hmm. I don't know about that, but when the phone company was one Bell operating company, you had your long distance and you had your everything was all one conglomerate, I guess. That's changed. I mean, there's all sorts of companies. Now you got to deal with like Sprint and MCI and all these other different companies who also have flaws in their security, because sometimes when you use a COCOT phone, the phone is not identified as a COCOT, meaning you can have the operator dial numbers for you. Sometimes 9X and AT&T know they won't put calls through, but sometimes MCI it slips by MCI. I don't know why, but some companies just don't recognize the fact that it's a payphone unless you actually tell them. And the way I tell them is get the phone number of the payphone and pretend I'm the owner of the payphone, saying, "Hey, somebody's making phone calls off this," and then they say, "Oh, well, let's fix this." You have to resort to that, because if you call the owner and say, "Hey, somebody's making phone calls off your phone," they're not going to know what what you're talking about. They're just going to say, "Oh, are you the one who's making phone calls?"
Yeah, I figure since you know about it, you must be doing it.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing. You get suspicious. I mean, there's people that know that I like telephones, and every time something goes wrong with the phone, they come to me saying, "Do you know anything about this?" And I said, "No. Well, something happened. I don't know."
Well, on the other end, I mean, what do you think of? I mean, the kinds of activities that the interest that you have. What do you think of the way that's treated in the press, as far as computer hackers and phone phreaks aren't often talked in the press, but cellular hackers certainly.
Well, I can give you a little bit of theory as to why cellular phones are treated like people like to hack cellular phones, is because who wants to pay for incoming calls? I mean, I do messenger work, and I want to eventually go to like getting my own vehicle or van or truck or whatever, and I'm going to need a cellular phone for like taking calls and jobs and stuff. I don't want to pay for incoming calls. I mean, that would be expensive. When I went to the cellular store to ask about cellular phones, the woman did not know anything. I don't know if she just didn't understand what I was saying, because I said, well, this you have this plan, which is so much a month. Does that include incoming calls? And she said, well, don't you pay for calls when you're at your home phone? I said, no, you don't understand what I'm talking about. Do you have to pay for toll-free calls or calls to the operator? And she said, don't you have to pay for that at home? And I said, no, you don't. And they said, well, I don't know. I mean, they're just so unknowledgeable. I mean, I don't know where they hire some of these people. Uh, you know, that's my theory as to why people resort to
There's also yeah, I mean but also I mean that technology doesn't need to be that expensive. And what is it about some of the technology?
technically. I think technically, I think that cellular phone shouldn't be. I mean, yeah, you should pay for the airtime, but don't pay for incoming calls. Don't pay for calls to operators or 800 numbers. I mean, I was using a phone on a plane, and I happened to call an 800 number. The phone call cost $10 to call an 800 number. I mean, and it was more expensive than calling a regular number. I mean, I called a regular number, an area code and phone number, and that cost $5. Why is an 800 number call more expensive than a call that a regular call? I mean, I don't know where they get these prices. They must be making tons of money from other unsuspecting people who don't know, that the prices shouldn't be this high. I mean, it's like, highway robbery on the information highway, what I see it as. And it's like the information highway has potholes and we have to fix them, and it seems like nobody's fixing them.
Yeah, I mean, because it seems like the thing about the technology is it should be liberating. It should be giving us more access to communications technologies in more ways. Cheaper.
I think if there was more competition in cellular markets, if privatization comes in cellular markets just as they did with payphones, there'll be better plans. You're right now you're stuck with 9X Cellular or Bell Atlantic or whatever, or 9X Phone Company, for your local calls. We need more competition, and we need more people to say, this is too much, let me make a company that
Yeah, a lot of people point to the free market and say that more competition will do it, but that hasn't always been the case in the past.
I don't know. I mean, with the long distance market, I guess it's helps to a degree. I mean, I think competition is good, really. I mean, but then again, with the competition, certain things can happen, technically or security-wise, just like the cocots. So many companies, one doesn't know what they're doing. There's a flaw in one. You got to tell them, and just like the case at the Cocat that MCI lets you make 3 phone calls and the others don't. You see, if it was only one company, one long distance company in the phone market, then you wouldn't have to worry because it's one company.
Yeah, I guess also too that what I've heard about the cellular industry is they build in a certain loss, and that's what dictates what they charge users. Loss based on theft.
Right, that's true, and I think people won't resort to theft if the service was cheaper. I mean, if they didn't charge for incoming calls, if they didn't charge for 800 numbers, if they didn't charge for operators, I would have a cellular phone right now if the service wasn't, so expensive. Not that it's so expensive, but services that you shouldn't be paying for. And the thing about making calls on payphones with I mean, it now costs like $2.80 to call from Manhattan to New Jersey, right across the river. I mean, who wants to pay that kind of money? That's why people use red boxes that manipulate the sound of the coins going in, and people do this all over the country, and because it's just too expensive. I mean, payphone calls shouldn't be, so expensive. That's why they have cocots that charge maybe $1. I mean, that's good. But then you have cocots that charge you to call 800 numbers. I mean, there was that's why 9X and AT&T, advertise for their 800 number to get to their operator, because some cocots don't let you dial a local operator. When you dial 0, you get a long distance company. Now, you're not supposed to do that, but they don't let you dial carrier access codes. And the only other means of getting to a local operator would be dialing an 800 number. And now these cocots, some of them, are charging you to call 800 numbers, like a quarter or 50 cents, or they're even blocking 800 numbers. And when you try and tell, like, the Public Service Commission this, I guess they're overwhelmed with calls about things like this that it just doesn't get fixed. So that's another reason why I think things are the way they are.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know, like in the 60s and the early 70s, the phone company was always identified as the system. And when people start making
guess it depends on who you talk to. You know, I mean, cold cuts can be a good thing. They can be programmed to do all kinds of things, and some cold cut owners or vendors don't know this, but some of us know that hey, a cold cut should do this, and and I've recommended this to cold cut companies, and and they take it as good ideas and things like that. And there used to be a scam with cold cuts that they used to put collect calls through, like you know, now when an answering machine picks up, if you don't press a certain button, like press 1 for the collect call, it thinks, oh, you have a dial phone, we'll just put through the collect call and assume you accepted it. Now, if your answering machine picks up, then how could it accept it? And when I told this to the cold call company down in Texas, they said, well, if your answering machine picks up the phone, you're probably going to want it to accept the collect call so you could check your messages. I mean, that didn't make sense to me. I mean, if a fax machine picks up and, it doesn't happen that much anymore, but I know there's one firm in Manhattan that does. I don't know if it still does, but it used to.
Did you have anything along these lines? Did you have anything?
Local 9X operator, and it gives you AT&T. That's not supposed to happen. We don't. We want to know, or at least I want to know. I just want to know out of curiosity why this is happening. And when you ask the phone company, they don't know. I mean, they say, well, it's supposed to give you a 9X operator, and I mean, I call repair service to report a whole exchange or a whole, central office. They don't know. They need one phone number. I have to actually go to the actual switch to tell them, and I've done this before. Told them that a particular exchange makes free phone calls to another exchange, and that's what you have to resort to, going to the actual source of the problem. And repair is not the source. They're just gonna refer one phone number, and maybe it'll get fixed, maybe it won't, but in many cases it won't, because you're reporting the whole exchange.
Yeah, I mean, in a case like that, I mean, those are kind of ruptures in their system. I mean, something's awry, and you can either, like not tell them that information, or
Well, it's not that you don't want to tell. I mean, it's not like they're making free phone calls. It's that something's wrong. Nobody can make free phone calls because 10698 gives you AT&T. It's just that it is a translation problem. There's something wrong, and you want to tell them. When something's wrong, you want to fix it.
and it's also just part of learning more about the system too.
Right. Yeah.
So that they're able to tell, by telling them something, then you get more information about how it works, when you're right or not.
Right.
Anything else?
Colcat is. A Colcat is a customer-owned coin-operated telephone, and what that means is that any business can have their own payphone. They don't have to necessarily get a phone from 9X, or the local phone company, rather. They can get a regular business phone line and hook up their own payphone. There are companies that make payphones, that look like regular bill operating company payphones. Some of them look different. Some of them look pretty interesting, actually. And the payphone has its own mechanism, its own voice, its own computer inside it. When you dial a number, it's programmed to ask you, please deposit 25 cents. You deposit the 25 cents, and it's dialing out on a regular phone line the number that you're calling, and they're paying 10 cents for that call, and you're paying a quarter. So the person who's owning this phone is making a profit off this. Now, with 9X, when you own a payphone, or when you're actually, I guess, have a payphone, 9X, a local bill operating company payphone on your premises, you only get like 10% of whatever the Coinbox collects over the month, or 5%, or something like that. With a payphone that you own, like a Colcat, you can get, I don't know, half the money, or depending on what the bill is. And it's a way for people to make a lot of money. That's why you see a lot of them out there. I wouldn't say they're replacing them. I would say they're in certain cases, like in lower income neighborhoods, I see them in because they're I guess more lucrative in places like that, or in like airports and hotels and places where people use phones a lot. Now I noticed that you do not see Cocat phones on the street as you do 9X phones. They're always like by a store or inside a place. I don't know if there's some sort of regulation for that, or I don't know how the regulations exactly work.
Well, you probably couldn't put it in a public space without getting the city
Right, that's probably
right away.
true. You probably have to pay rent to the city or whatever.
Yeah, these are like the phones that sit on counters and they really quickly.
Well, now that's another thing I was explaining. The desktop payphone, which is a desktop like a big fat type of a phone, like a Cocat. But you see, the difference between that is that with a payphone, a Cocat payphone, the one that looks like Bell Operating Company payphones, the person who owns the phone tells the phone company that they have a Cocat, so they make it so that the operators and long distance companies do not place calls unless they're like collect a third number or whatever. With these phones, the big desktop ones, usually they don't tell them. I mean, usually the owners can buy this in a store. They don't have to go to a vendor. They could buy it at an electronics store, and you just put a quarter in it and you dial a number. Now, apparently, most people don't know the technology. So apparently, some of them you could just dial zero and have the operator make a call for you, and of course it'll show up on their bill. I mean, I've done that many times, and and it still works. And I don't know who's getting the bill, or maybe they just are so baffled and don't understand what's going on.
So it's a new phone. It's just a regular phone, but you have to put a quarter in to get dial tone.
Right.
Beyond that, you can do almost anything.
No, you don't even have to put a quarter in to get a dial tone. You get the dial tone, you could just put zero on some of them. Some of them will block the operators, some of them will block carrier access codes. There are different models of this.
When you walk down the street, can you walk by a phone without picking it up to see what's going on?
Oh no, no. I mean, unless it's like a strange phone that looks interesting. I mean, if I happen to use a phone and I just play with it and something is interesting that is happening, then I'll sort of like investigate it and see why it's happening or.
Okay. And I guess I mean the one thing we haven't talked about are red boxes,
Right.
mailboxes. I mean obviously people use those to get calls and stuff. But, I mean, are they also used just to find out more about the phone system because they generate certain tones that might get you to test
Yeah,
something?
the blue box, the MF tones used to do interesting things. And again, I never knew what a blue box was until I met Emmanuel and off the hook because I heard the tones and I've always been fascinated by those tones. I never knew that they could do certain things and they can. That's the way operators dial. It's like you have a touchtone phone. Your tones do the things like the regular phone can do. Operators have different circuits. That's what I was always told. But the circuits are, these magical blue box MF tones, these 2600 hertz tones, and there's collect like coin collect tones. Like when you're on the, if somebody called me from a payphone and the coins happen to be collecting, I'll hear a tone, and sometimes when you call an operator, you'll hear a tone. There are different tones. They just name them in different ways, and they do different things. And then there's the famous red box tones, which make the sounds of quarters. The way I used to make calls is I used to get 3 payphones, put a quarter in one, and hold the earpiece to the mouthpiece of another, and that was a sense red boxing. But I didn't know it was red boxing until I met Emmanuel and everyone. But that's the way I used to. I knew about red boxing, but I didn't quite know what it was.
Okay, yeah, I just think that's interesting because most people think of red boxes are just ways to make free phone calls, but I mean the whole notion of
That's the
using
way
the
the
tone.
system works. I mean, it's archaic the way a tone is the means of saying that this person put a quarter in. That they need to change that, and and they have in some payphones mute the mouthpiece. And I always wonder how they mute it and whatnot. But of course, nobody will tell me that because they're afraid that I'm gonna infiltrate that. So, just want to know how it works and how they thought up the security for it. And who's behind it too? Because NYNEX is a big company. You dial their exchange in Manhattan. You get all sorts of different things. That's sort of like scan the phone company's number. You get automated service department and things like that. I just call and wonder what kind of department is this, and just because I'm interested.
That's great. Gene does.
Yeah, and then of course do it.
Okay, are you good with the phone? Is it too dark?
Hmm?
To say gray on brown?
Well,
I've
it's
heard.
just a phone.
Yeah. Well, I know, but I mean, we could put
I mean, what's more interesting is
we could put a
what
white
happens.
cloth down or something.
Oh, okay. Okay, we will if they bang, we'll have to probably go over.
Yeah.
Right. Well, actually, they're sort of moved in.
Oh yeah. All right. So tell us what what this does.
Well, actually, as I was demonstrating, as I was saying about carrier access codes, long distance companies have carrier access codes, and it's 10 plus three numbers, and then either zero for their operator or one plus the area code and number to make a directly dial call with them. Now, when you dial 10 plus their carrier access code plus zero, you're supposed to get their operator. Now, AT&T has one which is 10288, which is 10 ATT 0. Some local companies have carrier access codes. NYNEX has one, 10698, and then 0. Now, I'll demonstrate what happens when you dial a carrier access code. I'll dial AT&T's. Let's get a dial from there. We're going to dial 10288 and 0, and then pound, because pound just means that you're finished and you don't need to dial.
AT&T. To place a call, please dial the number that you are calling.
Well,
For other requests, please say information, credit, or operator.
see, now the other thing is that a lot of these companies came out with these automated voice
Sorry. To place
recognition
a call, please
things
dial the number that you are
that
calling. If you need information, press 1 or
well,
say information.
you see
Request
see
credit,
that this is what you have to go through.
For operator assistance, press 0
it used to
or
be that
say
you
operator.
it used to be that you get an operator right away, but
Por favor,
now
espere.
you see that.
AT&T. Por
See, now,
favor,
now,
marque
now,
el código de
well, you could always dial 0 and get out of anything in most cases.
Por favor, espere la asistencia de la
No, I don't
operadora.
speak Spanish. Okay. Now, NYNEX has a carrier access code. Let's dial theirs. That's 10698, which stands for NYT back when they were New York Telephone. 6980. We should get NYNEX.
AT&T.
Wait a minute.
To place a call, please dial the number that you are
I
calling.
dialed 698.
For other
Not.
requests, please
Wait a
say
minute.
information, credit, or operator.
I want to speak to an operator about this.
Please hold for operator assistance.
Thank you.
AT&T, how may I help you?
Oh, I thought I got NYNEX.
No, hang up and try again. You have an AT&T operator.
Well, I dialed 10698 and 0.
What is that?
It's supposed to be 10698, which is 10 NYT for NYNEX.
Okay, hang up and try again.
Okay, I'll do that. Let's try again.
AT&T.
Now, wait a minute.
To place a call,
Well, you could always dial 0, but the point is that if you're at a coke-out where you can't dial 0, you're going to have to get stuck with that. Now, let's dial operator. I hope I don't get AT&T.
thank you. May I help you?
Oh, yes. I was just wondering, if I'm at a coke-out and I needed to dial the NYNEX operator, and let's say when I dial 0 I get another long-distance company, I can still dial like 10698, can I?
Depends, I guess, what type of call you're making. Is it going to go through NYNEX or would it be a long distance?
Well, it seems like when I dial 10698 and then 0, it goes to AT&T. Do you know anything about that?
Not really. Let me have you talk
doubt the supervisor will know, but sometimes they take a long time to answer.
Supervisor's at lunch.
Maybe.
Hi, this is Mrs. Gazillo. May I help you, sir?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to. All right, I was at a call card and I dialed 0 to make a collect call using 9x, and I got a long distance company. Actually, can I dial 10698 and then 0 to if I don't get it through? No.
Boy, I don't know if you can from there. You could try it, but I know that some of the COCOTs, they don't contract as your dial-O operator. You know, you dial 0 to get a local operator. They don't have 9X. They might have some other company, some other.
Well, 0 is a local operator. I mean, if you wanted a long distance company, you dial 0 0.
Yeah, but we're not the local company for some of them either.
Okay.
No, see, they're privately owned pay phones.
Right.
So they can contract whoever they want for their telephones. And
Well,
they always contract
okay,
9X.
because when I dial 10698 and then 0, I'm supposed to get 9x, of course, right?
We don't normally give that 698 out. That you know, but you could try it. Did you try it from there?
Yeah, and apparently I got AT&T.
Yeah. See, you might not be able to from there. You might not be able to get a 9X operator from there, sir.
I see.
Yeah. See, they have it contracted to other people.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay. That story wasn't exactly. I mean, you're supposed to get 6980. I don't think she understood what I was asking, but it's another case of, they don't understand the system, and they're just not as knowledgeable as me or some other people. AT&T, speaking of them, they put third number calls through, even on regular phones. They're not supposed to, but let's get a dial tone here and demonstrate this. I'll dial 0. I'll dial a number that's disconnected too, just to so that if it does go through, horror of horrors, we won't get billed for it. Okay, just dial 0 for AT&T.
This is AT&T. Please say collect calling card third number.
Now you don't have to say these things. You could just push
For operator now.
third number.
Using touch tones, please enter the area code and number that you wish to bill this call to now.
Let's
Thank you for using AT&T.
now. Hopefully that won't go through. Okay, that didn't. Now, if I was at a desktop payphone, I could just place calls, to anywhere. I could call overseas if I want, and it would be billed to them.
Billed to any third number.
Any third number. Now, what is their excuse for this? Well, they say if you're calling from a payphone, that they'll verify it. They'll check. But if you're calling from a residence or a non-coin phone, which could be anything, there's no need to verify it because they could bill back the phone that it's originating from, and they'll bill back the desktop payphone. Now, I try to tell them this, but of course they don't. I can't get to the right department or the people who decide this, and it's just hard for them to understand this.
So at any COCOT, you could basically do this.
Well, most. I shouldn't say any, but a lot of them.
So as a result, people's bills go up.
Right. I mean, the COCOTs, they won't put third number calls through, but some desktop payphones, if it's not identified as a COCOT. Now, when I say identified, I'm meaning the owner calls the phone company and says, this is a payphone, this is a privately owned payphone. Do not let operator-assisted calls go through, unless it's like collect or calling card or something like that.